Hi everyone, this is Taryn with Wonderfully Made Handcrafting, and today I'm coming back here to work through day 13 of By the Well for God's new kit, Walk This Way. Now, day 13 is talking about the sons of Korah and how they were honored to be doorkeepers in the temple, and King David actually appointed them to be doorkeepers. And what is interesting about this is that their father, Korah, was a Levite who led a mob against Moses and Aaron because he was jealous of their power and position. And so for the sons of Korah to be given this title of doorkeeper, they were honored by it. And even in Psalms 84:10, they say, I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of wickedness. So as I'm die cutting this coordinating fabric, I'm just mulling over the thought that whatever position I am in, that God puts me in, I need to be content. And it's not about what's in my past, but what is right now. What am I doing right now for God? What position has He put me in right now? And for me, that's homeschooling my kids and being a good helpmate to my husband and just being in that position of a wife and mother. So I'm grabbing that Kingdom Quintessence stamp again. I used this previously this month and I really liked how I could feed it through my typewriter and just tell the story through the passport. I'm cutting out this little square so I can add another picture like I did before with Maggie Holmes's Heritage Collection. Now, this one I did a little oops on by accident. I did cut out the man. I had one gentleman on that 12 by 12 paper, but I by accident cut it too short. So you'll see me kind of piece it together. And honestly, when you're looking at the finished page, you can't tell at all. So this is one of my oopses that I just move forward on. So when you make a mistake, don't worry too much about it. 99% of the time you can fix it. Now I'm just temporarily holding it together with some of that scrapbook.com mint tape because I just had used it for the typewriter. It's not meant to hold permanently, but that's why I'm using this Barely Arts precision glue to hold it down. Once I have that glued down, it should hold just fine. I'm going back to my vintage styled page, and so you'll see me distressing everything on this page. This time I'm actually using walnut stain, which I usually go for frayed burlap, but they look very similar. They oxidize very similarly. So I just grabbed that one because I knew this page was going to be a little bit darker. So I'm creating a tag for my page, and I definitely learned some things using my new to me Distress Resist spray. Number one, spray it in a box or spray it outside. And I chose outside because I wasn't going to take any chances. I've heard once you spray this on something, it is very difficult to get off. You have to razor blade it off. So decided to do that just outside. That's why you didn't see me do it. Number two, I found that there is a technique to the spray pattern. So my sprays on here look a little weird. If you just do a half spray, that's going to be the best splatter pattern. Or if you do the full spray, you're going to kind of get a concentrated circle, which you see in the middle of my tag. So I didn't want to waste this tag. I knew some of it was going to be covered up, so I just went with it. But I really liked the Resist spray. It was really fun to use. You can use it through stencils. Since this was my first time, I just decided to use it just as a splatter. And it's cool because you can, it almost looks like bleach splattered on your tag. So if you haven't tried it before, maybe this is something that you should pick up. To add a little bit extra to this tag, I ended up taking out the background stamp that came with the kit, and I just placed that around my tag in a couple different places. Now at the end of this page, you can't necessarily read the words because there's so much going on, but you can definitely tell it gives a different texture, and you can see the individual letters, which is pretty cool. I also wanted to use these rain boots from the kit stamp, so I stamped that on another one of the tags just because I wanted that same color background, and I am clear embossing it after I stamped it with my favorite black VersaFine ink. I'm going to watercolor these boots with some Distress Oxide colors in peeled paint and forest moss. Now, in retrospect, I probably would have just stuck with the peeled paint with a tiny little bit of forest moss to blend in, but that didn't happen here. I added a little bit of forest moss and then I wasn't happy with how it was blending. I wanted to blend it better. And since there just wasn't a lot of space to blend in these boots, they ended up just turning into the forest moss color. So, pointer of the day today is stop when you're ahead because then your boots turn forest moss color. Now I'm going to make sure that everything is nice and dry before I start my next step because my next step is embossing glaze. I bought the peeled paint embossing glaze from Tim Holtz specifically for these boots. I really wanted some green rain boots and I wanted them to look slick. And so I grabbed the peeled paint while I was putting an order through scrapbook.com, and this is what we get. So these are really cool embossing pens from the Distress line, and I am adding that embossing glaze on top of the color. Now this will make it look a little bit darker. What's cool about the glazes is that they are see-through, so they're not like a normal opaque embossing powder, so you can create different colors. I also added a little bit of brown embossing glaze to these boots because I didn't want them to look really clean. I wanted them to look like you were walking around on a farm. And on the bottoms, I realized that the soles were different because they didn't have any embossing glaze on them. And so I didn't have any black, I didn't have any gray embossing glaze. So I decided to use that weathered wood embossing glaze, which I guess is kind of grayish blue. But it ended up working when you melted it because it was on top of black anyhow. So I feel like it just looks like a dark gray color on the soles, which works for me. I decided to fussy cut these boots out, and I am even going to use my craft knife to get that little spot in the middle. And I am going to make sure that you can't see any of that creamy color by just brushing over it with some of my Distress Oxide colors. And when you do that, it ends up making the boots not look as shiny. So I took a baby wipe and just wiped off the top because it has that plastic film over it. So it's not going to ruin the paper at all. Now I wanted to add a little bit more blue to this page because I knew that the alphas, the Doorkeeper alphas that I had made in fabric were blue, and so I wanted to pull that in a little bit more. So I grabbed the scrapbook paper that comes as an add-on for this kit, and I decided to use that wood grain one, which was pretty cool. And I added a little bit of distressing to that, and also added a hymn book piece of paper behind that because it looked a little funny with just one piece of paper layered on the tag. I ended up taking that over to my sewing machine and running that through twice just to add a little bit more fun and texture to the page, and then I will start layering everything together. I think I know how I want stuff layered, but I end up changing it all in the end, so just bear with me. And I've been waiting to use these new Tim Holtz marquee letters. They are so cool. They're like little marquee letters that you would put on a sign. They're clear and then with that black alpha on it. And I was going to staple it somewhere on the tag, and I didn't know if I wanted it above the boots or below the boots. So I end up just pasting those boots on with some foam tape, and then I'm going to figure that out. I decide after that I want them below the boots, but it does look a little funny because the boots look like they're floating now, and so I need something to ground them. And so I'm stapling these letters on, and when I get over here I realize how bad those boots look like they're floating, and so I just grabbed some of my Distress Oxide color. I think it's that walnut stain again, and I'm just watercoloring a little base for those boots to sit on. It's also kind of cool because it adds a look that looks like a muddy puddle that the boots are sitting in. Now I see that the Kingdom Quintessence card looks a little too blue compared to everything else, so I added a little bit more distress ink. And here I am, I'm going to add more distress ink to these fabric letters. I like the color of them, but I didn't want the white polka dots looking too stark. So I ended up adding just a little bit of that walnut stain to them, and it tones it down a little bit and it makes it look really cool and old. So I wanted to add also that Psalms 84:10 verse to this page. So I put that through my typewriter and I add it to a piece of paper in the back. There's two reasons why I do this. I know you see me do this all the time. One is mostly so that I can move it around my page and figure out where I want it placed. But also sometimes when you have a background that's busy and you put down one of those label tags, you can kind of see through it a little bit. So I want to make sure that that is opaque and solid and you can't see through it. So that's another reason why I put those label stickers on a piece of paper first. I decided to add some color to my background, and then I am putting this big script stamp all over the page, not necessarily so you can read it, but just to add some texture to this page and some interest to the background. I'm having a little bit of difficulty with my archival ink pad. Now the actual ink pad is coming off the backer, the plastic, and so if you have any suggestions, please let me know. I don't know if a glue would work or something, but I haven't had this happen before, so let me know in the comments below. I decided to use this stencil from By the Well for God, which was an add-on for this kit. Now this stencil is really cool and has a footprints of sandals, but it wouldn't necessarily match with the flow or theme of this page. And so I decided to use just the stony parts of the stencil, which adds something different to the background and makes it so that it's not so flat. I grab my fabric alphas and I begin putting them on with my Barely Arts Precision Craft Glue. This is a glue that's not necessarily a fabric glue, but it has worked great for me for adding fabric to pages. I usually create my clusters so it looks like you just threw a bunch of stuff haphazardly on the floor, and wherever they fall, but we're going to change it up today. I grabbed my white Neo Color 2 to break up some of that script in the background, and then I'm going to line everything up so it's vertical or straight against one another, which is very different for me and something that I think I might do in the future. The ephemera card that you see in the back of my cluster is actually a city map of New York. Obviously, New York has nothing to do with this Bible story, but it was a piece of ephemera that I had picked before I started this page because it embodied the colors that I wanted to create. And so that is why it is on the page. It adds something a little extra, and I think it looks good in the cluster. So that is why there's a city map of New York there. Sometimes you don't have to have a reason for everything on your page. I did add a little bit of fabric to the tag and also the Kingdom Quintessence card. That is fabric that I had received in a previous By the Well for God kit, and I just deconstructed a little fabric tabby from them. And that is something that is always fun to do. If you don't use those paper clips, you can always deconstruct them and use them in different ways on your page. I'm adding my date stamp right here, and then I will add a little bit of copper Nuvo drops to 3 places on this card, and that will add a little bit more of that antique kind of industrial look to this page. And then that will be it. If you've enjoyed this page, please like and subscribe to my channel, and go ahead and follow me over on Instagram at Wonderfully Made Handcrafting. I hope you have a wonderful day, guys. God bless.